Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The afternoon sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting the room in warm gold. I stood by the dresser, fixing my blouse that clung a little too close to my skin after a long, humid day. The faint hum of the air conditioner filled the silence, until I heard footsteps behind the door. "Wait outside," I said softly, almost instinctively. I wasn't ready for anyone to see me like this, hair loose, cheeks flushed, a few buttons undone. But before I could turn around, the door creaked open. He stepped in. For a split second, neither of us moved. His hand froze on the doorknob, eyes wide, not out of shock, but something else. I could feel it. The air between us thickened, slow and heavy, as though time had forgotten to move forward. His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean to," but his words trailed off when our eyes met. My pulse quickened, loud enough I could almost hear it. There was something in his gaze, not bold, not innocent either, just caught somewhere in between. I could see the hesitation in the way he lingered, unsure whether to leave or apologize. I took a step toward him, instinctively, maybe to ease his nerves, or my own. The distance between us shrank. I could feel his breath now, shallow, unsteady, matching mine. My fingers brushed the side of the dresser, the wood cool beneath my skin, grounding me in the moment that suddenly felt too alive. "I told you to wait," I said, my voice quieter this time, trembling between firmness and something softer. He nodded slowly, but he didn't move. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might finally turn away. But he didn't. Instead, his gaze flickered again, from my eyes to my lips, then back, and something inside me twisted unexpectedly. The silence grew louder, heavier, until it was unbearable. I turned slightly, breaking the tension, or trying to, but my hand brushed against his as I passed. That accidental touch sent a jolt up my arm, electric and undeniable. And then, before either of us could say a word, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. We both froze. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. After that moment by the dresser, I couldn't shake the feeling. The silence that followed lingered long after the door had shut. He had left without another word, but his expression stayed with me, startled, guilty, confused, and something else I couldn't quite name. That evening, the house felt heavier than usual. The quiet was different, not peaceful, but thick with unspoken things. I sat at the dining table, staring at my untouched cup of tea. Across from me sat his father, my husband, flipping through his phone, barely looking up. We hadn't spoken much lately. Conversations had turned into short exchanges about bills, schedules, or dinner plans. The laughter that once filled the house had faded somewhere between his late nights and my quiet loneliness. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking up. "Yes," I lied, tracing the rim of my cup with my fingertip. "Just tired." But it wasn't tiredness. It was emptiness, the kind that crept in slowly, quietly, until it became a part of you. And that afternoon's brief, unexpected moment had cracked something inside me, a reminder of what it felt like to feel seen again. Later, when I passed by the hallway, I saw him, my stepson, sitting on the edge of the couch, earphones in, staring blankly at the TV that wasn't even on. His posture was tense, shoulders stiff, like he was replaying the moment in his head too. I hesitated, then spoke. "Hey, about earlier." He pulled out his earphones and stood quickly. "I'm sorry," he said, cutting me off. "I shouldn't have." "It's fine," I interrupted softly. "Just, next time, knock first, all right?" He nodded, but neither of us moved away. There was something fragile between us now, not dangerous, but undeniably real. I could see it in his eyes, the struggle, the restraint, the awareness of a line neither of us had crossed but both had felt. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small, nervous smile. "You looked different today," he said, almost under his breath. My heart stuttered. I wanted to say something, to scold him, to change the subject, to do anything, but my words got caught somewhere in my chest. "Good night," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Good night," he replied, his gaze lingering for just a second too long before he turned away. As I watched him walk up the stairs, I felt that same pulse of confusion, a mix of guilt, curiosity, and something deeper I didn't want to name. I pressed my palm against my chest, feeling the faint thud of my heartbeat. I had told myself it was nothing, just awkwardness, just a misunderstanding. But that night, lying beside a husband who didn't notice how restless I'd become, I knew it wasn't that simple anymore. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. Every sound in the house, the closing of a door, the creak of the stairs, made me aware of him. He was careful now, distant even, but I could feel his presence everywhere. It was strange how the air could change just because someone was near. One evening, I was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, washing dishes. The faint sound of the TV hummed from the living room, but when I looked up, he was there, leaning against the doorway, quiet, watching. I froze for a moment, pretending not to notice. The water ran over my hands, but my pulse was racing. "You need something?" I asked, keeping my tone even. He hesitated, then stepped inside. "Dad's working late again," he said, his voice softer than usual. I nodded, drying my hands slowly. "He's been doing that a lot lately." "Yeah," he murmured. "You shouldn't always have to eat alone." That comment, innocent on the surface, carried something underneath. A warmth. A question. Maybe even a challenge. I turned, meeting his eyes, and for a second neither of us looked away. The sound of rain began to patter softly against the windows, dimming the world outside. The smell of it mixed with the faint scent of soap and dinner, ordinary things that somehow felt different now, heavier. He took a step closer. My heart thudded so loud it filled my ears. "You've been quiet lately," he said, searching my face. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." It was such a simple sentence, yet it cut deeper than he knew. "I'm fine," I wanted to say, but my voice didn't come. Because I wasn't. Not really. Instead, I smiled faintly, trying to break the moment. "You worry too much." He smiled back, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something unreadable, something that shouldn't have been there. The distance between us shrank just a little too much. The tension was fragile, almost dangerous. And then, the sound of a car door slammed outside. His father was home. We both stepped back instantly, like two guilty souls caught in the act of nothing and everything. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It had been raining for hours, the kind of steady downpour that blurred everything outside into shadows and ripples of light. The house was unusually quiet. His father had gone out of town for a meeting, leaving the two of us alone for the weekend. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I could handle it. But as the night deepened and thunder rolled softly in the distance, every sound, every heartbeat, seemed louder, more dangerous. I was in the living room, curled up with a blanket, pretending to read. Then came the soft knock on the doorframe. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked without looking up. He shook his head, stepping closer. "It's too quiet," he said. "Feels strange." I smiled faintly, setting the book aside. "You'll get used to it." But when I looked up, he was closer than I expected, close enough that the warmth of his body broke through the chill in the room. His shirt was slightly damp from the rain, and a strand of hair clung to his forehead. I caught myself staring a moment too long. "Do you want some tea?" I asked quickly, standing to move away. He nodded and followed me into the kitchen. The air between us buzzed with a quiet charge, unspoken but alive. As I poured the tea, our hands brushed, just a touch, fleeting and accidental, but it sent a spark racing up my arm. Neither of us pulled away fast enough. I looked up. His eyes were already on me. The clock ticked, rain whispered against the glass, and for a suspended moment, it felt as if the world had narrowed to just this, two people standing too close, breathing the same air, pretending they didn't notice what was happening. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said quietly, his tone soft, sincere, almost trembling. My lips parted, but no words came. The truth sat heavy in my chest, fear, guilt, and something that refused to be ignored. Before I could respond, the power flickered. The lights dimmed, then went out completely, plunging us into darkness. I felt him step closer, too close, his breath near my ear as he whispered my name. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The house was swallowed by darkness, save for the dim glow of a single candle flickering on the table. Rain hammered the windows, thunder rolling like a warning. My pulse hadn't slowed since the lights went out, and neither had his presence faded from where he stood just a few feet away. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the storm outside and the faint creak of the old floorboards as he took a slow, hesitant step toward me. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he said quietly, his voice low but trembling with something deeper, something that sounded a lot like truth. "But I can't keep pretending nothing's there." I froze, unsure whether it was fear or relief that washed over me. My breath hitched as I met his gaze. There was no mischief in his eyes now, only raw honesty, the kind that left you defenseless. "This isn't right," I whispered. "You know it's not." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. But sometimes, right and wrong stop mattering when you can't stop thinking about someone." The room felt smaller with every heartbeat. His confession echoed in my chest like thunder. The very thing I had been trying to deny had just been spoken aloud. Before I could respond, lightning flared through the windows, and for an instant, his face was lit, all emotion, no mask. I saw pain there. Longing. And something that made my throat tighten. But then, a sound broke through the moment, the sharp vibration of a phone on the counter. I turned to look. The screen lit up with a message that made my blood run cold. From my husband, flight delayed. Back tonight. Don't wait up. The words hit like a punch. Tonight. Not tomorrow. I turned back to him, heart pounding. The tension shifted from unspoken desire to pure panic. He saw the message too, and for a moment, his expression flickered, regret, fear, and something that looked almost protective. "We can't do this," I whispered, finally finding my voice. "We shouldn't even be here like this." He took a deep breath, stepping back. "Then say it," he said softly. "Say you feel nothing, and I'll never bring it up again." My mouth opened, but the words didn't come. Because lying in that moment felt impossible. The candle flickered violently, then went out, plunging us into darkness once more. And in that silence, only our unsteady breaths filled the space between us, breaths that said everything words could not. Then, the front door creaked open. "Hello," came my husband's voice, faint but clear. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The sound of the front door clicking shut felt like a thunderclap. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out even the rain outside. He stepped out from the hallway, suitcase in hand, shaking the water from his coat. My husband, home earlier than either of us expected. Power's out, he asked casually, setting the bag down. His eyes swept the room, the candle on the table, the 2 mugs of untouched tea, the tension that refused to hide. Yes, I managed to say, forcing a calm smile. It went out an hour ago. But my voice betrayed me, too tight, too fast. He noticed. He always did. Then his gaze shifted, past me, and landed on him. My stepson stood frozen by the kitchen doorway, guilt written all over his face. The air thickened instantly, heavy with silence that screamed louder than words ever could. "What's going on here?" my husband asked, his tone sharp but quiet, the kind of quiet that felt dangerous. "Nothing," I said quickly. "We were just talking," his son interrupted. "About Dad. About things we both noticed." The explanation was half true, half shield, but his father didn't buy it. His eyes narrowed, scanning both our faces, searching for cracks. "Things you both noticed," he repeated, stepping closer. "Like what?" No one answered. The silence stretched painfully long. Finally, I exhaled. "Like how distant you've become," I said, my voice trembling. "How this house doesn't feel like a home anymore." He stared at me, eyes hard, expression unreadable. "And that's what you talk about? In the dark? Alone?" Something in me snapped then, not anger, but exhaustion. "Someone had to notice," I said, my tone rising. "You stopped seeing me a long time ago." He just reminded me what it felt like to be seen. The words hung in the air, sharp and unforgivable. My husband's expression cracked, a mix of pain and disbelief. My stepson looked down, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Thunder rumbled again, deep and endless. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." But the damage was done. Every truth that had been buried under silence had finally broken free, raw, trembling, and too real to take back. My husband turned away without a word, his footsteps echoing down the hall. The door to the guest room slammed shut. And in the quiet that followed, I sank into the chair, tears burning behind my eyes. My stepson moved closer, his voice barely a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," he said. "I know," I replied softly. "But sometimes, even honesty hurts." The storm outside began to fade, but the one inside had only just begun. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The storm had passed. By morning, the house was quiet again, no thunder, no shouting, no sound except the faint hum of the rain tapering off. The tension that had ripped through the night slowly gave way to silence and reflection. My husband had left early, saying he needed time to think. I didn't stop him. Maybe space was what we both needed, to remember who we were before everything fell apart. I sat by the window, watching the last drops slide down the glass. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't running from my thoughts. I was ready to face them. Then, behind me, I heard footsteps. Soft. Hesitant. "I didn't think you'd still be here," I said quietly. "I didn't want to leave things like that," he replied. His voice carried a gentleness that surprised me. "I shouldn't have said what I said last night. It wasn't fair to you, or to him." I turned slowly. My husband stood there, eyes tired but softer than I'd seen them in a long time. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of everything that had happened hung between us, heavy, but not unbearable. "I missed you," I admitted finally. The words came out trembling, raw. Somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like we were on the same side. He stepped closer, his expression breaking. "I did too," he said. "But maybe this everything happened because we forgot how to listen." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. Maybe. He reached out then, slowly, carefully, and took my hand. His touch was familiar yet new, a small reminder of what we'd almost lost. We can fix this, he said softly. If you still want to. I smiled faintly through the tears. I do. The light outside shifted, the first hint of sunlight breaking through the clouds. The world seemed to exhale with us, the storm, the guilt, the silence, all finally easing. From the hallway, quiet footsteps moved away, his son's shadow disappeared up the stairs, leaving us in peace. Maybe he understood, this wasn't about him anymore. It was about us finding our way back. My husband brushed a strand of hair from my face and whispered, "No more secrets." I looked into his eyes, not with regret, but with a strange, steady hope. "No more silence," I replied. And for the first time in a long while, we smiled at each other like we used to, not as strangers, not as broken people, but as two souls finally choosing to start over.